writing. But now, since you have brought up the fact that we document history, both of you have captured cultural sounds and subcultures from the new wave of hip hop all the way to Bacardi. What work goes into that? First of all, what makes you decide that that there is this subculture that exists, and on top of this subculture existing, and sometimes they may not actually have a name, what makes you decide that this is what you actually want to capture, and how long does it take you? Because because for the type of research that y'all have done, even in the way that you talk about new wave, because I remember, I'm not even sure where the clip was. I think it was an MTV clip.
It was MTV.
Yeah, because you're talking about new wave and you're talking about how it was very punk related in terms of the way that the trap kids were performing. And in the back of my mind, I'd made that connection, but I'd never kind of said it out loud. And when you said it, I was like, yes, these kids are really actually doing very much punk rock stuff from the early 2000s, but kind of just putting it in a trap. Some songs literally are punk rock just over trap beats.
Patrick XXP.
Yes.
Come on.
So when you're starting to actually deciding that this is the subculture that I'm trying to capture, what motivates you, and then what is that process for you?
All right, so I'll take this one first. I think a lot of the times we see things in the world and it reminds us of something else. So I don't know about y'all, but me personally, I like Fall Out Boy, I like My Chemical Romance. You understand, right? And I see someone jumping up and down on stage, on beat, dreadlocks. I see water in the crowd. I see sing and repeat. I see chants. That is very punk. I see the way that you're dressing. Your nails are painted black. Let's talk about that. That's not something that you see specific to a lot of genres outside of rock and roll, outside of punk rock, etc. So you're seeing these things and you're not making those connections. But for me, I want to understand. I want to know, how did you get here? Why do you look like that? You look real good, but why do you look like that? And in documenting that and in paying attention to that, it also creates a foundation for being able to develop that understanding further. And where money comes into music, where money comes into any industry, is when you've demystified a portion of it. Now there is, being mysterious is cute. Not if you're new though. But being mysterious is cute. But once you've demystified just enough of something, you allow also mass interaction with that something. So if I tell you that this harkens to X, there are people who might see X and say, oh, I loved X, but now I'm seeing its derivatives. I have a renewed interest in whatever. And that's, for me, why I go doing what I do. But it's not necessarily that I stumble across something new and I'm like, oh, I need to explain this. It's more, you're not gonna be in my face and I'm not gonna know you. Yeah. I'm gonna know you. It's my job to know you. And how long it takes in terms of doing the work, I used to joke and say that I grew for a living, but really what I mean by that is I go to all of your shows and I take notes on my little imaginary clipboard and I critique you guys, and sometimes if I like you enough, I'll tell you, hey, by the way, you should stop doing that. And sometimes I'll tell you, keep doing that, or talk to so-and-so. And it's really just about creating that space between what's in front of you and what it means and where it comes from, and remembering the history.
I resonate with that. I think sometimes I even have a similar approach with, I think I started writing after really seeing that, but I understand the connecting different things. And if you see it like this, then everything will kind of open up a little bit more. But then with you and Bacardi, it was a completely different thing, if I'm not mistaken. So what was that journey like for you in terms of deciding that you wanted to even capture Bacardi in the way that you did? And then, what was that motivation? What was that feeling like?
I think for me, it's not entirely different from how Misa approaches it rather. For me, it's being connected to the streets. So I've sort of written a lot about piano in the past 2 or 3 years. So in that, I'm always looking for angles and different ways of approaching piano, because with international publications, since they're not here, they will always do the intro article or choose that one artist who's sort of crossed over. But for me, since I'm a fan of the music and I listen to it like religiously, I know the current trends. I know when the sound shifts. So I was fortunate enough to be in the studios when the guys were sort of coming up with that hybrid style of having Bacardi in piano, and that sort of fascinated me because I grew up on Bacardi too, you know. So with that, I knew the challenges like that Bacardi, like Kwaito and any other South African birth genre that came before piano right now, new school hip hop. There was not a lot of documentation. So I'm like, yo, this is actually the chance to use piano, but sort of pay homage to the styles that came before, like Bacardi or any other style that piano comes from, you know. And I think throughout the years, I've sort of become like the voice of piano. I know the guys. Come on.
Talk about it.
Come on. Don't just zoom through that like you didn't say something.
No, in the sense that I'm not trying to be cocky or anything, but in the sense that I know the guys are not always articulate, you know. So us as writers, we sort of build that bridge between someone who's outside, someone who can understand the music. So in my writing, context is very important because with the sound and how it has traveled to far-reaching places in the world, not a lot of people understand it, so that's where I step in. Sort of from the studio or from the music, I translate that into words that can live in different publications.
So with that, one of the things which I'm also picking up from the both of you, which is also kind of having a strong relationship with artists, right? So how do you, for you, how do you actually navigate how it is that you try and create relationships with artists, and in what sense? Because also I feel like when you also get into a space of critique, it's a touch and go space. Also depending on how specific artists also reflect and interact with critique and analysis. So what is your kind of journey? Do you have a process, or like how do you kind of feel out how you navigate your relationships with different artists, specifically the ones that you decide to capture so vividly?
So personally speaking, I sincerely believe that artists want to be critiqued, specifically South African artists. Perhaps in more developed countries with very robust media industries, there is an aversion to that critique because that critique has impeccable and very difficult real-life consequences. You are followed every day by tabloids in the United States, you could come up dead. In South Africa, if nobody's writing about your music and sharing about your music, there is difficulty with expanding your voice past your personal audience. So here, I don't have that thing of people are touch and go about critique. Where it's a problem, perhaps, is where my critique is not quantified, but I am physically incapable of not quantifying what I said, because if I said it, I meant it.
Can you just elaborate on that just a little bit more?
So social media platforms such as, but not limited to, Twitter, TikTok, et cetera, you only have your audience. Like if I'm posting to my feed, I only have my audience for like 3 seconds. I gotta get them in 3 seconds, and then if they don't, mess with me, they move on. But if they do, they watch through. But even so, I can't qualify everything that I'm saying. Now, if I say to an artist in text, I noticed that the vocal production was lower in sound in comparison to the instrumental, and that communicates one of three things. Communicates either that your sound engineer was greedy and wanted, the instrumental to shine a little bit more than the vocals. It says to me that you're perhaps not confident, or it says to me that you don't care enough, right? But when I say the vocal production is bad, and I don't add those 3 points to express why I've said that, of course you're gonna get your knickers in a knot. But because I qualify and say this is what it is and this is how it is, it's respected and it's understood. But more so than that, it's about building trust. Like I said, if I said it, I meant it. I will say, I didn't like this and I didn't like this, but I appreciated this. And that's just the article. That's what everybody sees. What everybody doesn't see is the 2 a.m. call, hey, quickly send me your 1, 2, and 3. And I've sent that to a label that I won't disclose, and then a year later there's a deal on your table and in your inbox. That's me. That's what I do. And artists have a relative respect for the fact that I might be saying what I'm saying and I do mean it, but that don't mean I don't want you to get better. I want to be on the journey with you.
You're usually doing it because you want them to get. Ooh.
Exactly. I want you to get better because like it upsets me. So Google is free and you ain't look. Google is free and you ain't look at it. Now once you ain't ask somebody. Oh, that's not gonna work. And so for me, it's like if there's information available, or you know a friend, or like you are bright and brilliant. You made something out of nothing. You opened Pro Tools and there was nothing there. And then all of a sudden, someone found the entire soundtrack to their life. You did that. All I'm asking is that you package it a little more and you ask a few questions so that we can get you to the point where you are able to sustainably do this for the rest of your life. That's what I want for you. And sometimes artists don't want that enough for themselves.
Yeah. Yes.
That's your word.
I was trying to find like a calmer way of saying it, but no, yeah, that's true.
I can't want it more than you.
And sometimes you do, especially like when you're doing, when you're trying to get materials and there's no materials, when you're trying to tell people, okay, I'm going to come to you in like 3 months, have the materials ready because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you just don't, sometimes that communication and that want doesn't necessarily seem to be as evident with some artists, not all, but like a select few.
It's all because artists are not supposed to know their administration. They should know it. It's important for them to know it.
Yeah.
But the most important thing for an artist to know is their art. That's why you have the managers. That's why you have the assistants. But until you have the money to be able to afford those types of professionals, you need to be knowledgeable. And for a lot of artists, it's about honing in the craft and understanding the craft, and that's brilliant. But that's not sustainable, and that's a dangerous way to live. And it's not fair to artists to have to think about, will there be money for food and rent because I don't have money to pay an assistant or a whoever. So because of that, they have to be interested in their own education.
Yeah, they have to have an idea of what's meant to be going on.
Exactly.
And now with you and your navigation of relationships with artists, how has it been for you?
Where do I begin? I think I'm privileged enough to work within the music scene, so a lot of my relationships stem from that. But with me working within the scene and working with artists in my different heads, I still remove myself when it comes to critiquing. And now with critiquing, I think critiquing differs from bashing or just hate, you know. Yeah. So when you're critiquing someone, like Misa said, you tell them this is where they could improve, this is what they're doing right. So I think that's the fundamental difference between the two. But the relationships sort of help when you want to secure the interviews, because I work with people that are not always professional, that don't always understand it. So sometimes it takes a conversation outside of the journalist and artist head or scenario and tell them, yo, this is why you need to do this. This is why you need to do that. Sometimes you don't have to do it with me. You can do it with Misa, you can do it with this person, you know. This is why these things are important, because I think sometimes a lot of artists, yes, there's Google and all, but a lot of artists, especially in these, can I put it, like piano or these other smaller genres that are not so equipped with the game, they sort of, and you need to teach them and make them understand why the game is the way that it is.
So what I'm also understanding, and I'm saying understanding like I don't do this myself, but but for the sake of the audience, is also very much being within the journalism space and within the analysis space also comes with an understanding that you have to approach it also with a care of artist development, purely because also a lot of those functions aren't as developed here as they would be in other places.
Thanks.
Yes, and on top of that, like, we don't say this enough, and I think I touched on it previously. Writing is an art. we wouldn't know about our human history if someone didn't sit their behind down with a pen and paper, sometimes with a scroll and feather, sometimes with a typewriter, and more recently with their MacBook or Dell or whatever. We wouldn't know about the world if someone didn't take the time to put a subject, a verb, and an object in a sentence to tell you what happened. So as much as we are documenting, we are also working our own art to express your art, which is far more abstract in comparison because you have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I got pages.
Yeah, we can write 10 pages.
I can
about
write
3
10
minutes.
pages and trust and believe me, I'ma land. You might not land in your 3 minutes, but I'ma land with my 10 pages. I guarantee you that much.
So with that, I would like to open, if there are any questions in the audience before we get to the second half of our conversation, we can open to, where am I getting this feedback from? Is it because I'm sitting here?
Sit back, babe.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah.
So do we
Get
have any
comfortable.
questions before we get into the second half of our conversation? Any questions from the audience?
Let me tell you something. I see some artists in the crowd. If y'all mess up and you
Now,
was
Misa,
quiet,
let us
I'ma
not-
call you out later. I'm gonna be like, I was on the stage and you had some questions and ye kept quiet. I'm just saying, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you.
3, 2, 1.
Now it's a chance.
Bye. Okay, there we go.
Thank you. Hi guys.
What up, bro?
Hi.
Yazz had a thread on Twitter the other day, earlier in the year. Might have been in
Was it
Jan.
the music thread?
Yeah, it's a thread of his favorite live performances, and I gave him a particular set of flowers on just being one of the few journalists in music who attend the shows. And I got a bit spicy, and I was like, all the other bullshit
Very spicy.
doesn't, But with that said, I think that's something I can connect to the three of you, just your presence within the culture. I bumped into you guys, like, in the streets, at Groove, it's like, okay, yeah, you're having a good time, but you're working as well, and that's the kind of joy of, I guess, the nature of your work. Yazz came to a show of ours a couple weeks ago, and I didn't know you have such a good time in general. Like the assumption with, is this a question? No, there will be a question. There will be a question.
We're talking.
But
Go
basically,
It's okay.
It's a conversation.
yeah. So I was so surprised at how much of a good time you have. Like, he dances really well. It's like, and I was like, okay, cool. So it's a misconception to assume that people who are journalists and who are great with words and writing pages are nerds, right?
Very
That's
much.
a misconception because, like, he showed me. I mean, I bumped into you plenty of
So many
times,
times.
So
many
and then, so with that said, there's another thing that came into mind, and this is where we actually get to the question. I don't know if you guys would agree that you're part of a new generation of music journalists in South Africa.
Yeah.
Cool. So there's an older generation,
Yeah.
and they aren't terribly accessible, number one. They
Yeah.
don't like people, number two. And I mean, I just know this from the days, like, when I was like from African hip hop blog.
Yeah.
I'd fight with a lot of
You can't
publication.
identify them.
Oh yes.
I think that's where you're getting.
Oh
at.
yeah, no,
you
for
don't know
sure.
what they look like. You
Yeah.
can't identify them.
And I mean, as soon as you snoop, you find names, and these are the people who are getting your emails, and it's like, okay, so anyway, so one thing I also noted with just that older generation, and I thought this was the case until I kind of acknowledged the thing about you guys that makes you different, is that I always thought that to be a great music writer, you have to have a lot of hate.
Hate?
Yes.
Why?
Because listen, right, and I saw it just in a couple tweets, it's like the art of writing is the art of hating, but professionally. That's what it. But then you guys, and the way you're so passionate and you're in the streets, it's like, So I want to know the older generation or older generation, because they're a lot older as well. So I don't know if you guys feel like there'll be a point where you're like, I don't want to go outside. I'd fuck all these emails. Pardon that.
I think it's okay. I think it's natural. I think it's two parts. I think it depends on, first of all, the type of writer it is and what their intention is with writing. Because, for example, I made it with Next Gen Greats when I was doing Next Gen Greats. I made it a statement that I wouldn't write about something that I did not at a base level appreciate. So that would then mean that I would not write necessarily, even if I'm writing a review about a song which in my mind is like middling, if there's something that I'm really passionate about it, I will show you what that passion is and then frame it around that. But I have that luxury because that's my publication. There's no one telling me that I have to do six articles every week or 6 articles every day to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, if you're in a position where you have to write about a song and you don't like that song, what are you going to do?
That's
It
what
happens so much.
What is the actual, how do you actually go about doing that? Because you can't lie about not liking a song if you don't like that song, but you have to write about it. So I think there's, with me specifically, there's that, I'd call it a privilege, purely because it is from my publication. My publication is, even the name, Next Gen Grades, like, you're not supposed to be kind of hearing like hate from like something called about Next Gen Grades. So I think there's that aspect of it in that it's not necessarily like older generations, but I think the blog generation and the fact that we get to curate our own spaces outside of being part of a wider publication allows us to curate a space where I can say, in this space, I'm going to be like this, and then when I'm doing something for this publication, and they're telling me, or if I'm signed to this publication, I'm doing these many articles, then then my voice kind of, I don't want to say differs, but you can even tell with the writing, for example, for example, with like with the Rolling Stones article, right? The Rolling Stones top 40 article, the top 40 Afropop songs of the year. There wasn't a single review that I counted where it kind of looked like there were more than 400 words. So it kind of felt like you guys had a paragraph at most. Would that be a correct assumption? Yeah. So if you have a paragraph to write about a song, and this is the top 40 of the year, the amount of depth and analysis that you can go into that for 250 words or 400 words is completely different to when you have 800 words. Like with a Next Gen Greats article, each of my, like, for one review, I'm writing about 500 to 650 words. So I can get into what I'm passionate about, what's interesting about the song, all those different things. So I think from the older generation, there's that aspect, but also, the younger you are, you kind of do have more passions. We have less. No one here has kids. Like there are less kind
that
of
we know of.
that we know of.
Y'all, that sounds like a y'all problem.
that we
She
know
and
of.
her don't have no kids.
So we have less things that are kind of like tying us down. So we're allowed to be in the culture and in the streets a lot more. I don't say a lot, but this is my opinion.
I didn't want to go. I did not want to go to the shows. Slicker made me move to Johannesburg. If it were up to me, my behind would be on Camps Bay writing about your music, and I was able to do it well, even from a distance. Where I think there's maybe not enough conversation is that journalists, for every 100 artists, there aren't enough journalists to write about all of you. And that's where the fatigue and the burnout comes in. I used to have a formulaic way about writing about artists on Fridays, for instance. I would tell everybody, send me your things beforehand so I can guarantee you placement. But if you send them to me on the day, and on top of sending it to me on the day, I can't search you, I can't find your images, you would know. I was a girl that would tweet on Fridays, I can't stand y'all MFs, talking to me about I want publishing space and Hong Kong. I was mad. And I'd say, you need to give me this, that, and the third. But older generations are also the generation of writers that's working under duress. So they don't want to go and see you on their one night off. They don't want to go to the shows, and we have to extend that grace to them. Just like we, as writers, extend grace to y'all when you send me emails that say, I'm the next best thing, and I'm like, your music is, but you should stop talking. You should stop talking. This make me uncomfortable. So it's grace, I think, that we're all just looking for in this writing space, but admittedly, yes, I like going to the shows. I will write an article. I recently wrote an article about South African groove and what it looks like and what it feels like. And I remember I went to Sumo one night after someone's launch party. And it was Mateki Two Shoes, Ricky Rick, and Tseho, and like a few people a few of the celebs that were at the party. And there was a running joke, like, Misa's always in the club. Mm-hmm.
It's my job.
It's my job. And Mateki played a song. It was Mateki and Ricky doing a little two-step. right next to in the sumo shogun side. And I recorded the song and I sent it to the office like, this is why I'm in the fucking club all the time. And there was then the understanding that if I go to the club, I'm gonna get the scoop, I'm gonna get the story. There's a sense of, Misa comes to my shows 30 minutes early. Shame, bitch, Nana, we must let her listen to the album in full before it comes out. But that takes time. And I have the energy to do so. I have no children. I have no mega home that I'm maintaining. I can afford to sleep or go to the club and go home, shower, and go straight to work and put out the article and have, the story shared, very well. I can't say the same for a lot of the people who are also working in traditional media. Because digital media, if I can log into my laptop anywhere and open WordPress and be like, okay, I'm publishing right now, it's fine. But with the traditional media guys, if it has to go to one editor, the next editor, the bureaucracy of that process also takes a bit of the fun out of it. And you don't want a writer to write about you when they're not feeling you. It's very mechanical. Let me not be crass. It's like doing something with somebody that you don't really like, but like you need to. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying.
I think if I may add to your question, I think the common thread amongst us is that we either freelance or we have our own platforms. So that, like you said, now there's a sort of privilege that comes with that, because now I can sit here and say I've never written about an artist or song, album, whatever that I don't like, and that comes with the privilege of no one is telling me, yo, Caesar or this person put out this thing, or we got this pressure from this PR agent, you need to write about this. If I don't want to, I won't write about it. If even my editors from the different publications that I work with are like, yo, there's this artist in South Africa, can you please interview them? I would tell them first, yo, can I listen to the music first, even if it's a big name, but if I don't like the music, I am not going to write about it. I'm sorry about that, but that's just how it is.
You're not sorry.
No, but that's just how it is, and I think being outside is because of the love. Excuse me, I'll go back to that, because I really love music. If I was not doing what I'm doing right now, I'd still be involved in music somehow, because I just love it. So going to the shows and being with the people that actually make the music, seeing how the fans connect to the music is a really special moment. Like you said, Amajita opened up Pro Tools. So from that and to seeing it when they're performing it in different stages is a really beautiful thing. And I think sometimes we write different things. You mentioned the Rolling Stone Top 40 what songs of the year. That's 2022. With listicles, I'm sure you would agree, Misa, it's quite different, because there's a length. You can't go deep dive, and I love deep dive.
It's like reporting.
Yeah.
Writing a listicle is like I'm giving you a report, whereas what you're talking about is more I'm researching and getting to know.
So with that, even though it was a list and there was certain songs that we had to include, I think I'll give credit to the publication. It was transparent. We had to come up with our own personal list first, and then we debated the songs that ended up on the final list. But with that, you still chose the song that you want to write about. I mean, I didn't like all the songs there, no offense. There's songs that I didn't like.
Oh no, this is
He
the safe
said,
space.
"Do not I don't recognize some of you."
There were six of you, right? At least on the.
Yeah, there was 5 of us. So the one person, the girl that works at Rolling Stone, she was sort of facilitating the whole thing. She's based in the States. There was someone based in Kenya. 2 were based in Niger, and I was based in SA. So it was sort of an inclusive list to include everyone from the continent, because it's best Afropop song. And in their definition of Afropop, that's the first thing I said. I'm like, yo, we have a different definition for that right here.
I kind of assumed, since it was an American publication, they were saying Afropop, popular African music.
That's
What?
the
Yes.
first thing I said.
Yes.
I'm like, yo, we got hip hop songs, we got piano
Yeah,
songs.
because it's the piano, alto thing, all of this under the guise of.
everything.
Because I think the first song, even the first song was like, what was it? It was.
It's Benno Boy.
Yeah, and I was like, this is the first. Okay, okay, cool. But yeah, no, but it's because you're looking at it from an American lens, so you also have to like take those things into consideration.
Those are some of the things we have to fight about, you know, behind the scenes. But with that list specifically, I chose the songs that I love, you know. So even in such scenarios when I by Luanster, you still have that love thing that's connected to it. And trust me, as a freelance writer, I know how it feels like to send a pitch and to get mized, you know. So I understand, and you mentioned care and Ayaz. It's the caring. We care about this shit. It's not nice, Nachi, when we get mized by editors, but it's part of the job. Sometimes, Miss, I won't always respond to your emails, but you keep trying.
Here's the thing, I think something else to consider. You didn't get the article space, but did you get a mention? Because if you got the mention and you look at the impressions, so as much as writers aren't all nerdy, in my heart of hearts, I'm a nerd. When that Montessori, what from Instagram says something's changing on the platform, I'm there, I'm on it. When they launch new tech, I'm excited. Me and my mom go, did you see this? I'm that person. I went to Meltwater. They listen in, like if Google wants to know how Google is being mentioned online, they use Meltwater. I asked for a tour of their software, and I gave them one of my artists' names, and they showed me where all across the internet his name showed up, and the impressions from social media alone qualified for me as his publicist at the time to say, you know what, you copy and pasted. Also, if you copy and paste a press release, you don't look at my front. But even when an article is shared, if I see that maybe the article wasn't shared, maybe the press release wasn't shared, but my artist's name and his music was tweeted from an account in a thread, the value of that from an impressions perspective is still worth its weight. And perhaps you haven't gotten the full spread the way that you want to. When it does happen, even if it's only one publication, no one is stopping you from running an ad with that as the link. Who gonna check you? It's your ad, you pay for it, you put, whatever end link you want in there, and even if you don't get all of them, if you get 200,000 impressions on that one article, you're in the right path. And there's just not enough of us. So, a lot of people who have thoughts on music or who like to fight me about mine, you've made a 6-thread tweet. Start a blog, my guy. Start a blog. You clearly have a lot to say.